Hi, this is Pete May, co-founder of GreenBiz Group, and I'm excited to be here on GreenBiz Studio today with Natalia Pascual. Natalia, hopefully I pronounced your name correctly, and welcome to GreenBiz Studio.
It was perfect. Thanks, Pete.
I looked at your background. You've had an engineering degree, you did consulting, you did digital products. Tell us a little bit about your journey to come into Agendi and what Agendi does.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, as you mentioned, yeah, my background is in engineering, consulting, sustainability. Generally, I've been helping deliver solutions for client across a variety of different industries, from tech and insurance and retail for over 7 years. My academic background in engineering and sustainability actually helped lead me into the work that I'm doing today. We're at Agendi. I'll give a brief overview of that as well in a moment. But at Agendi, we do obviously help solve some of the most complex problems that face our world today. So having that background definitely is really helpful. And in addition to helping the corporate organizations progress towards their missions, I also work with local sustainability nonprofit organizations to help them achieve their missions. And that was actually my start in the sustainability space was in the nonprofit sector. And as promised, Agendi, we're a sustainability consulting firm. And really, at our core, we believe that all businesses have the potential to achieve their missions while considering the triple bottom line, right? Their economic success, the environment, and equity. And our goal is to really help them do that. So all of our project work is geared towards continuing global decarbonization efforts, from calculating greenhouse gas inventories for complex industries, helping organizations set targets through and in alignment with SBTI, and disclosing through many of the different sustainability frameworks such as CDP and TCFD, among others. And so the last thing I'll say is we're not only passionate about sustainability for our clients, but also internally. And we ourselves have approved SBTs and are certified carbon neutral. And I'm quite excited, probably the most excited to say, we've recently become B Corp certified.
That's great. Well, let's focus on, at GreenBiz, we've seen this explosion of corporate climate action over the last couple years. Why don't you, if you talk a little bit about that and also talk about, there's been this obviously preponderance of, kind of in ESG, the alphabet soup, proposed rulings flying around. It's a very complex and confusing time. Can you talk a little bit about that and give some clarity to our audience where you see some of these recent rulings and where they're leading the market?
Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely something that we've seen as one of the biggest shifts in the industry right now as organizations start to become more engaged, not just in their ambitions and the actions they're taking, but also in policy and the regulations that are popping up globally, actually. So we're seeing a lot more of these standards come into the sustainability space, which is definitely welcome for some, not as much for others. Um, so recently, among the alphabet soup, of course, that you mentioned, there's three particular new disclosure requirements and frameworks that are currently under proposal and for review that are being quite talked about in the industry. So, the first of which might be very common, especially for US folks, the US SEC proposed rule for the enhanced standardization of climate related disclosures. Um, and that's supposed to be uh, wrapping up and decisions being made by the end of the year. The ISSB, which is the International Sustainability Standards Board, also has submitted a draft for climate related disclosures. And then finally, Agendi is a global organization, so we also have folks in Europe as well, which is why this one's on our radar. But the European Financial Reporting Advisory Group, EFRAG, also has a draft on sustainability reporting standards for Europe. This one's actually one of the most detailed and talks about double materiality, among other things. But really, all three of these take input quite heavily from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol and the TCFD, which is a task force on climate related financial disclosures. And the good thing is that we're seeing that there is some commonalities across all three of them, right? All three of them will require reporting on scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, And almost all of them require some sort of scope 3 emissions, especially if it's material in nature. And so we're talking about having companies and organizations really take, I guess, responsibility for all the climate related emissions across their value chains, right? And the second thing that they all are, you know, coming to consensus on is the incorporation of critical disclosures around risk management, and specifically using the TCFD disclosures as the inspiration for a lot of the requirements in this way. And we're inching closer towards a global standard. We certainly will need refinement and consensus, but it's really good news to see that all these three different proposals across the world and in different governing bodies are kind of landing in the same field, even around climate disclosure.
Yeah, that was a theme at Greenfin that we saw with, the increased rigidity there, but also harmonization of those standards. I'm curious, just the last question we have for you today. There's so much going on here today, but I think it's easy for us all to ask ourselves, are we making meaningful progress? Where could you give us some sense of where you see this process ending, and are we leading toward meaningful progress within ESG?
Yeah, you're kind of hinting at the last piece, the last sentence that I said in the previous question around how we're inching closer towards that global standard, but we'll certainly need additional refinement. And with all of these standards coming out, change is never easy. And of course, there's mixed reactions, both positive and negative. But I do think that we are getting closer to the right direction. And at Agendi, we have been helping companies actually respond to the requirements from these standards before they go into effect. They're supposed to be going into effect in 2023 through 2025. And so some of these things are, incorporating transitional and physical risk analysis for TCFD reports, or helping companies like WRI actually calculate their category 15, which is the one of the most difficult financial related emissions, so those from investments. And so seeing the amount of, I guess, interest in these kinds of disclosures and analyses skyrocket just in the last 6 months, and having Agendi grow as much as it has is really, I think, an indicator of the progress that we're going to see over the next few years in this space. There's just such a willingness to align, and get in front of a lot of these things. And clearly, everyone cares a lot about the direction that we're moving and wants to be a part of that.
Yeah, well, complex stuff, but I agree with you. There's tremendous movement here, and so much more that needs to be done. It's going to be fascinating to see where the SEC rulings lead, and the others. But Natalia Pascual, it was great to have you of Agendi. Great to have you here today on Greenbiz Studio.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much, Pete.